So if we go to show demos and then R-Comp, we can bring up Messenger. We launched just before Bradford the Messenger Pro 9 upgrade, which is basically an opportunity to bring out a new version, really, to accommodate various changes that are going on in the world that require that sort of response from Messenger. At its heart, the main updates relate to SSL and TLS and support for modern security standards. A majority of email suppliers now are pushing for encrypted email of some description. So it's sort of become a point where messengers at pre-existing SSL support, which used our old secure sockets module from 2000, was becoming a bit long in the tooth. So Messenger Pro 9 is an opportunity to update all the core bits of Messenger Pro to run on the new Acorn SSL system, which supports the latest TLS and SSL TLS standards. Using it's based on ARM's embed TLS, as far as I know, which is basically one of the industry standard SSL TLS implementations, especially if you're using an ARM processor. So that essentially means that RISC OS is bang up to date as far as SSL TLS support is concerned, and by moving Messenger over to that, we can take advantage of that. So basically, this is 9.0. There is a 9.00a, which just had a minor tweak to the run file to ensure that it didn't misbehave on RISC-OS 4 machines, or sort of non-Unicode systems were coming up with an odd error occasionally, which because of a module not getting loaded. So we just made sure that the module is loaded on those RISC-OS 4 systems. So that's why there's a 9.0a on Plink Store. So basically, if we look at the choices and email accounts, this machine isn't actually set up to do any fetching because it's a demo setup. Actually, what I will do is that's fine. So basically, in the POP and SMTP setup, you can see that if we go to security, we have SSL and TLS mechanisms that now use the Acorn SSL, and that's all now built into Messenger Pro 9 as standard. Another aspect of that applies both to POP fetching and also to SMTP outgoing mail. And then additionally, we've updated the IMAP component to also support IMAP over the Acorn SSL system as well. Additionally, there are, where are we? I'm looking in the POP, it's the facilities I'm thinking of are in the SMTP side. There are also new facilities for handling multiple SMTPs and also ensuring that your mail is correctly identified as coming from your host stroke domain, which is becoming more and more important. That you may have noticed, or you may not have done, that if you send emails via if you've got your own domain and you send emails via your internet provider's SMTP facilities, for example, your emails have a habit of being regarded as spam by services like Gmail and Hotmail. In fact, this last week, I had a customer who got to a point where any emails he sent to Gmail were getting rejected, and they weren't even getting filed as spam. They were just getting bounced right back to him, and Gmail was no longer accepting emails at all. And this was because basically his identification on his system was saying it was coming from his personal domain, but Google were actually tracking the email back and seeing that he was using PlusNet, and tracking that back and saying, well, you can't send from your domain when you're actually sending through PlusNet, and blocking his emails. So one of the changes that we've done in Messenger Pro 9 even, is to give finer control over that and ensure that people can route their email correctly. And you can also make sure that your computer identifies itself as whatever you need it to identify as in order to get smooth sailing through the through all the sort of approval and checking systems that modern internet email providers are requiring. So that's obviously quite an important sort of low-level but fairly fundamental aspect that is well worth improving in Messenger Pro 9. We've also looked at email attachments and mobile devices, that we had some reports of people having trouble sending emails to mobile devices with attachments, with the attachments either getting corrupted or not appearing on the mobile devices. And we found that there were various things that it's actually the mobile devices that were causing the problem, not Messenger. Messenger was actually being a good little bunny and following all the standards. But what we found was that the some quirks in the Apple, or some quirks in Apple, some quirks in Google's mail clients that were misinterpreting what we were sending. So we've been tightening up attachment handling in Messenger Pro 9 so that if you're sending messages to other platforms, which you inevitably are, those messages appear as you're expecting on.
Hello.
What are you doing?
On Messenger Pro 9. So, for example, my colleague Richard Brown at Orpheus had started noticing that one of our people who had upgraded to Messenger Pro 9, when he was reading his messages on his iPad, he was getting a much better experience, and he was about to congratulate the guy who was sending him the emails. And I said, and he hadn't realised that it was actually a Messenger Pro 9. So I got a big thank you from Richard for making his life dealing with emails on his iPad much more pleasant as a result of the Messenger Pro 9 enhancements. So that's another aspect of 9 that is new and improved. So yeah, Messenger Pro 9 attempting to make life better and easier in a world of secure email. On the IMAP front, we've also made it smoother switching between the POP and IMAP modes. Quite a few people want to sort of have some mailboxes that are POP, some mailboxes are IMAP. And whilst it would be nice to have all of them all in one place, that's has a number of fairly major challenges involved. But what we did find was that, you know, Messenger allows us to switch between things. You can click the login window and switch between IMAP systems. I haven't actually got anything set up on here, so it can't really demonstrate. But the switching now between the IMAP and offline or network server modes is now much smoother, much less prone to problems, and so it's now much easier to flip between IMAP mailboxes and POP mailboxes on the fly when you're using the system. So, for example, I have some IMAP boxes on my work machine which are connecting into, say, the RISC developments IMAP servers at Orpheus, and I have my own R-Comp mail which I handle in network server mode via POP SMTP. So I can smoothly switch between those two now and just work on whichever ones I need to. So again, that's a nice improvement for anybody who's mixing and matching mail accounts. There are also some performance enhancements relating to usage on Pi boards and slower disk systems, and we've also integrated a whole raft of zero-page protection fixes for use with modern builds of RISC. So it's just that bit more. They weren't exactly bugs that were fixed, but you know, code tightened up to play nicer with the latest versions of RISC. So all in all, Messenger Pro 9, good chunk of bits and bobs in there, hopefully of interest to people and worth an upgrade. Next up, we have the Forte 2. Obviously, you can see that this is running on Forte 2. I will now drop away from the shared screen for a second. and switch to just talking to in a window. Hopefully you can see me full screen. It's not doing so quite for me in my view. But what I've got here is a Forte 2. Hopefully you can see that if I sort of flip it round slowly. We're going out of focus, so there we are. Some of the rear ports. Forte 2 launched in January. Due to difficulties getting hold of parts for the original Forte, we moved over to Forte 2, which uses a metal chassis for improved rigidity and durability, and comes with features like built-in heatsink, optional fan. I say optional, you don't have to pay extra for it, as some people seem to think. The fan is standard, but it's optional in the sense that you don't have to enable it. So for example, the Forte 2 that I was running the demonstration on for Messenger is actually running without the fan running at all. It's running at 1.8 gigahertz using what we call a boost mode, which is basically a Pi Foundation approved mode that they use in their Linux system to basically auto overclock up to 1800 megahertz on machines where it's safe to do so. And so that's running just passively with the heatsink. We find that the heatsink knocks roughly 10 degrees off the base heating, as it were, of the Pi, and if you enable the fan, then you can get further cooling on top of that. Forte 2 has been had a very positive reaction. As I said in the sort of pre-stream chat, as it were. I feel like I've been building them almost every day since Bradford. I think people like the fact that you've got a built-in solid-state disk, as well as access. You've got SD and it's front access, so you can access that SD card from the front of the case without having to take anything apart. You've got front and rear USB ports, coupled with the Pi's native benefits of being quick and having the hardware Ethernet port in the back, which provides high-speed networking. As you possibly saw when I twiddle it around on the screen, you've also got full access to the GPIO port through the back panel. Because of the arrangement of drives, we can also offer a dual boot Linux if you choose the SSD system. That you can. It's entirely optional. We can apportion the drives exactly how you choose. So different people choose to have more or less weighting between the different drives. But you can choose, for example, to have Linux occupying half of the solid-state disk, for example, and RISC OS accessing the other half. Shared storage, backup between the two, and you can combine all of the above into different, exactly how you would like. We talk people through that during the configuration. People can choose exactly how they want to have that. And you can even choose the flavor of Linux you use, or so for example, I just did one to Germany where the guy wanted Twister OS rather than the normal Pi OS, and that was no problem. We installed that and put on the drivers for the chassis features into Twister, and that worked a treat. Also, because you've got front access to SD, you can also try out different Linuxes and things just by putting an SD card in the front, which will always take priority boot-wise. So if you want to try a different operating system on it, you just pop a different SD card in the front and off you go. It can boot entirely from SSD as well, or as I say, you can mix and match the different drive formats and things as you see fit. So all in all, it's a tidy hardware package. Small, as you saw in my hands, but cramming in all the sort of core features that most people are looking for. So yeah, if I now go back to the Forte as a shared screen, I should say the screen sharing that you're seeing with the Forte is being done through VNC, and that is our built-in feature of Forte and Forte 2. Let's see, where are we? Slightly into a muddle with all the different windows I've got open on this machine. So we want to screen share, and we want to go to Forte and share. Okay, so basically VNC sharing is a standard built-in feature of Forte and Forte 2. It's worth saying that the Forte tool software that configures a lot of the sort of features of Forte is common between both generations of machine, as are downloads generally. So just because we're onto a second generation of Forte doesn't mean the original owners lose out. They have full access to the updates and things we do for both generations. I've made quite some effort to keep the two in sync so that we don't end up with a sort of situation where the Forte becomes a poor man's relative to the Forte 2. So all users will continue to gain access to all software updates, and the software will mirror across both generations of machine. So if we look at the power and heat session, you can see what's going on. You can see the clock speed, we can see temperatures. And if we look at the networking, you can see that I've enabled VNC access and just ticked a box, put in a password, and that's allowing me to access it from my PC running Zoom. This makes it nice and simple so that if you are doing Zoom presentations or you want to sort of show your RISC OS machine over a network, maybe you just want your RISC OS machine to sit behind the monitor without a screen attached for some reason, you can just tick that box and away you go. Speaking of not having a monitor attached, if we go to display, you'll see that there's a 1080p headless mode when no monitor is connected, which is something that can be a bit fiddly to organize on a Pi, because by default the Pi will actually look and see what monitor you've got connected and configure itself accordingly, and if you don't have a monitor connected it will default to a very low resolution and base settings. If you tick that box in the display settings, you can actually ensure that it always boots up with a 1080p remote access desktop to give you a more sensible display if you're accessing it over a network without the need to resort to sort of faking it and things like this, which were otherwise necessary. The Forte tool software, which I was going to talk, you'll see that's actually the third thing on my my hit list down the right hand side, but it does seem appropriate to talk about it during the Forte 2 talk. Is also available standalone for users who have Raspberry Pis or Pi 400s and for some reason don't want to embrace Forte. They can still gain access to the software. It's available on Pling Store as PyTools, and basically we've tried to include sort of, it's about 99%, I would say. There's 1% that's very specific to Forte and Forte 2 that wouldn't apply to a Raspberry Pi, and that's been trimmed out. But otherwise, you're getting the same software experience if you buy PyTools as you would if you got the Forte tools free with your Forte. The way we've designed Forte tools is that a lot of the sort of system tools and resources that we would install on a Forte are actually housed within Forte tools. So updating Forte tools will also allow you, when you put on the update, it will tell you that there's new software available. You click on OK, and it will update the R-Comp bits that come with a Forte to make sure you're on the latest builds at the same time. Similarly, you can update CMOS settings with your software. You can load the CMOS settings, install now, or update firmware accordingly. So yeah, plenty of good stuff in there. The power and heat section allows us to do fan control on the Forte 2's fan if you wish. You can monitor temperatures and see what's what. There's also overclocking included. If I click the power and heat and look at the overclocking profiles, you can see we've got no overclock, Pi-approved boost 1.8 gig, which I'm using, a forced 1.8 gigahertz, 2 gigahertz or 2.1 max overclock. You can choose what you want. there's no particular reason I'm not going faster other than the fact that, frankly, Pi Foundation auto boosts its Linux to 1.8 gigahertz, so that seems like a pretty good choice to me. And since I'm running it passively without the fan, I'm a stickler for noise. It just seems like a good choice in terms of where to pick it on the scale. I did actually run just out of curiosity. I ran it at 2.1 gigahertz sustained with no cooling, and I think it barely peaked over 60 degrees, so that's well within the sort of 85-90 limit that the Pi is rated for. So there's no particular reason why you couldn't run at 2.1 with passive cooling, but yeah, I don't feel the need to, quite frankly. I don't see that pushing hardware past its recommended limits is necessarily a good plan for sustainability. I'd like this machine to still be working in 5-10 years' time, as it were. So for my own use, I run at 1.8, which feels nice. And but you have the option, if you want to go all out for speed, you pick that profile. If you want to be conservative and just run at 1.5 gigahertz, you can do that too. That's the beauty of doing the overclock profiles, is that you can easily switch between what you fancy and what you think is appropriate for you. So yeah. Forte comes with a broad range of software, as you've seen. You can see some of the things on the back, stuff in this corner. Please ignore Iris being on there. That's for the RISC developments portion of the talk. But you can see some of the software included on the system. You get complete programs like Messenger Pro, Data Power, Fireworks, I don't know what else, network printer drivers, all sorts. There's loads of good stuff included. I think the joke was it's a £250 machine, but you get more than £250 worth of R-Comp and R-Comp interactive software bundled in. So however you look at it, however you cut it, it's a pretty good deal in terms of what you get with the system. Okay, so I'm looking at the clock and seeing time ticking by, so I'm going to sort of skip onwards now a little bit from that. So I'm going to stop screen sharing again now. Next up, we had Sidekick, which is something we introduced at Bradford. I've got one here. Hopefully, if I come closer to the thing, you can see. Literally, it's about the size of my hand. It's a complete computer system, not much larger than a credit card. Maybe a big credit card, I suppose, but certainly smaller than your average phone. You've got 4 USB 3 ports, twin HDMI capable of 4K, and I've just got this little device sat on my network, just literally the power connected. The idea of a Sidekick is basically to bridge the gap between RISC OS and other peripherals in a tiny, discrete package, essentially. There's no fan in there. It has an Intel processor in there. It runs Windows 10 Professional. I'm sure that will cause people to spit tax, but it comes free with Uniprint, Uniserver. And the idea is that, or where it stems from, was that I read an article in Archive where a guy was really struggling with getting his old printer to work with his RISC machine. And I was thinking to myself, well, you're having all these problems, you're spending a lot of money trying to get the printer sorted with your RISC machine. And obviously Uniprint just solves printing problems. And I'm thinking to myself, why on earth are you struggling like this to get your printing going when Uniprint exists? And the only reason I could think of really was that either people didn't have a suitable sort of PC type system to run Uniprint, or they didn't like the idea of having an actual PC that was physically, a beast of a PC on their desk, hogging electricity and what have you. And so it occurred to me that if a real PC or PC laptop was not something that they could digest, then a little box that's actually a peripheral server for printer, scanner, Zoom, web, etc., file sharing, you name it, connects to your network so tiny that it you can tuck it on, behind your monitor it comes with a monitor mounting bracket, for example. Something that's just effectively so, completely forgettable, essentially, that just does the job and sits there, and you just basically don't have to think about it. Might be just the ticket. And as I say, this one is just literally, it's using wireless networking. It can print wirelessly to printers. This one's got 256 gig of storage, but you can actually put an NVMe solid state disk in there.
Yes, I did, didn't I? Yes. Yeah, so you could look down and get a couple, didn't you?
Bruce, would you mind just thanks. So yeah, you can basically use it for all manner of things, and then just run it from your RISC-OS desktop. So I'm going to share again the Forte, having shown you the computer. And you can see here I've got my Sidekick running in a window on my RISC-OS desktop. And you can see I've got my Uniprint set up. The 4 USB 3 ports mean you can connect in all sorts of drives, printers, scanners, what have you. And you can see I've got a Sidekick icon on my icon bar, which has got a link to the file swap folder, which you can see has got a picture in. And if I double click on that picture, you'll see that it's the same picture that you're seeing a thumbnail of there. So basically, I can take advantage of it, use it as a shared storage mechanism, sort of 250 gig network drive. Is jolly handy as a sort of backup type thing. And it also provides, as I say, that runs Uniprint. You can dump scan jobs and things into there. You can use Zoom on it. You can do video on it. You can bring up the Sidekick. We can open a web browser. Make it a bit more. This is actually a quad-core 2.7 machine, I think. So now we're accessing it via VNC to the Forte, to the Sidekick, to the internet via wireless. So a bit mad, but and probably not how you would do things in real life. And I suspect it probably won't look great when all of this is coming over the. Find out. Yeah, go away. That probably isn't coming over particularly well over an internet connection and Zoom, but basically I'm watching a video in my RISC-OS machine in a window, quite happily, essentially solving problems for RISC-OS with my Sidekick in a window without having to have another machine connected to the internet, connected to my monitor or anything. Literally, I just have power into the Sidekick, and it's solving problems for me. And that's the key to the beastie. It's a tiny box that you can have it hidden away. You can forget about it, but it solves problems and it's handy. And the key thing is it's not horrifically expensive. The base model, which is sort of 4 gig RAM, either 128 or 256, have to double check, is 250. This one as a show special is 290 with 8 gig RAM and 256 storage. And there are, there are a variety of specifications to different pocket sizes, as it were. But the point is, in the grand scheme of things, they're not the most expensive computers out there, but they're solving a whole heap of problems that RISC-OS users could face just using a pure RISC-OS system in isolation. And that's the point of the Sidekick, is to be your RISC-OS machine's sidekick, essentially. So yeah. RISC cubes. don't worry, folks. I'm going to go through the last bits fairly quickly of the R-Comp talk. RISC cubes continue to be some of our most popular machines. Obviously, the pure ARM ones get all the headlines. The RISC cubes are, workhorse machines that continue to be popular. We've got some new models available with the latest processors and things in. I'm doing one of those. I'm starting work on one of those on Tuesday, I think, for someone. So they're available in both the sort of normal shoebox size or in slim sort of half height or third height type versions for attachment to the back of the monitor. And we tend to carry stock of both designs. You can have up to i7, probably even i9, but let's be realistic and say i7 processors in there. 16 gig of RAM unit, terabytes of solid state storage, etc. High-speed USBs and so on and so forth, and run RISC OS and Windows on there. All RISC cubes ship with our Uniprint technology for linking the two platforms together to try and give you a seamless experience when running RISC OS and RISC OS applications. Other hardware projects is basically an opportunity for me to tell you about the Pi motherboard and the Pinebook Pro projects that we've talked about previously. The Pi ITX motherboard project, broadly speaking, works. It's reached sort of testing phase, but there's basically no availability on the components, and even the Pi compute modules, you just can't buy them. So essentially, the project's on hiatus until such time as the components required to build the thing actually become available. As I say, it exists. The various bits of it have been tested. There's different subcomponent systems, but since we can't buy, some of the chips and any of the compute modules, it becomes a bit academic. Pinebook Pro, there's talk that some models will be available in July. I've got some nice benchmark results coming out of it. There's been some more work done recently on Pinebook Pro. Bit tantalizing for you. Michael in Sweden did some RISC-OS Mark benchmarks, and the benchmarks that came out of Pinebook Pro were actually the fastest results that were listed on Chris Hall's How Fast website. So that was comparing against Pi 4, Pi 400, Titanium, the Pinebook Pro outpaced all of them, not by a massive margin. It was fairly close run, but yeah, it was interesting that we've got a laptop that's actually as fast, or if not faster, than the current gen sort of speed demons, as it were, as far as RISC-OS is concerned. So there's progress there. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some of the July batch of machines, but will also remain to be seen whether they actually appear. So fingers crossed that over the summer we'll start to be able to get our hands on some stock and actually be able to start working towards delivering you Pinebook Pro. Network printers, lock screen, safe store, the two other topics. Probably just all I need to say is had some fun setting up new network printers for my father Alan last week or the week before. Very smooth experience using our network printer driver software, and just a general reminder that we do hardware like network printing, we do printers, monitors, all full range of dealer type products as well, and can assist with with getting those installed. Or we can just do box shifting if you want to get the absolute lowest price and you'd like to buy through a RISC-OS company rather than going direct to Amazon. Then we can sort of box shift, and the price will be broadly similar to what you'd pay elsewhere, but you get to support a RISC-OS company. So depending on whether you want more support or whether you just want to box shift, we can help you and keep it within the community, as it were. And often products can be delivered to you next day, just like you would expect from big name box shifters. Finally, lock screen and safe store, etc. There's sort of been a bit of background progress on safe store. Lock screen was a new product that we launched over over lockdown. Lock screen during lockdown. There's some pun there, I suppose. It's built into Forte tools, or you can buy lock screen standalone. Basically, you can click lock screen now. I've not set a password, but you'll see it comes up with a lock screen with the time and a background of our choosing. We can just put in a password, but basically it locks your computer down either when the computer is idle or at startup, so that you can secure your system. In an era of GDPR and the need to sort of protect the computer, if you've got clubs information, if you've got people's personal details on your computer, you ought to have a way of preventing access to it under GDPR regulations. So lock screen is some step towards that. As I say, included as standard with Forte tools, Pi tools, or available as a standalone program if you wish, available on Plinkstore.